This week on the Business and Marketing Scoop, I'm chatting with James Flynn, the co-founder and CEO of ConnectMor and coso.ai, all about his journey building a software business. James, cheers for joining me today, man.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So I know you because a couple of guys in our agency use the software ConnectMor that you developed, you founded.
Yep.
And I know at the moment as well, you're working on a new project called coso.ai,
Yep.
which is kind of built on, I suppose, from ConnectMor.
Yep.
So obviously I want to dive into the two of those, but I suppose before we do that, if we go back to James, way back, how did you get started in this space?
So, yeah, I guess a bit of background is Mark highlighted. I run a tech startup. We do like marketing software, social media to help people create content. But yeah, no, I don't really have a background as a marketer prior to that. Was kind of interested, did computer science finished in 2017, worked as like a back-end engineer for a few different tech companies over a few years. But in like October 2018, I was kind of interested in potentially setting up business. I had some ideas, and I ended up having a chat in a pub with my friend's colleagues. He worked at a marketing agency at the side at the time, but he was on the like the operations side. Some of his colleagues that were marketers, basically over a pint, were giving out that they were like a social first agency, and when they onboard a new client to their agency, they'd basically end up like scrolling through their competitors' Instagram feeds on their phones to like get a kind of a bootstrap their strategy for their new client.
Yeah.
Which probably sounds familiar. And so I was like, well, why isn't that automated? And they're like, don't really know. So I was like, oh, cool. And then about 2 years later, I kind of worked on a couple. I was still working for companies up until like August 2020. So about 2 years later, but for those 2 years, I was kind of working on a few different business ideas on the side for a few weeks here and there. And that one kind of stuck with me. The concept of like automating that kind of social media competitive analysis. And then when I started looking into it as well, I've got a small bit of a background in AI from college. Like I only have an undergrad, but like my thesis was on like a system that taught itself strategies for a board game called Othello, Reversi. But you can think of chess for argument's sake.
Okay.
And basically it simulated games of chess against itself to teach itself strategy. So that's a small bit of AI, like not like PhD level, but like can put stuff together.
Very cool.
Started looking at this competitor analysis thing, realized that it's perfect for like AI because the main blocker for AI is you need like labeled data. So typically a human has to sit down and go good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Whereas if you look at social media content, it's all like inherently labeled because you've got like likes, comments and shares. So you know how well content's performing, which lends itself super, super well to building like an AI system that can kind of interpret that. So beyond the competitive analysis, we're like, oh, actually we can start creating content with AI. But back 2020, 2021, you needed a few million of investment to hire engineers to build that stuff. So we were like, what can we do in the meantime? Kind of monetize the data that we're starting to gather to build this AI system, which is where ConnectMor came from, because we basically kind of built like Google Analytics for your social media, where it's like a dashboard, statistics and stuff, and then you can use that to make informed decisions about what content you're creating based on kind of what works well for similar businesses and what kind of resonates with your own audience. And then we were started trying to scale up that business a bit. Got some customers who use the product and like the product, such as yourselves, but we were kind of struggling to kind of bridge that gap from like being a very startup to like approaching where we can actually scale and build like a profitable business around it, just because there's kind of a mismatch between who cares about that data and who needs that data. That makes sense. So with ConnectMor and these in-depth social media statistics, typically people who are like kind of agency social media marketers or like in-house kind of folks on social media care about that, but they're actually people that don't necessarily need it because they're already very good at their jobs in lots of cases. So it is helpful, and we still use it ourselves for some of our socials, and we do have clients that use it, but it wasn't like a broad enough appeal to kind of like be able to like scale the sales where you can call people up reliably and like be like, this is how it works. We actually got like about 270 businesses signed up to it over a couple of years.
Unreal.
Most of those came like inbound through like pay-per-click and stuff, which is a really good positive indicator. So the problem was there, but then when they were using the solution, we were finding it really hard to convert them to actually paying customers, because part of it was like time to value as well was kind of weird for being a self-service kind of software platform. So we had really good conversion from like sales calls and sales demos, because I was able to show people the product and then put data in for them, so they were getting value immediately. but we needed to like self-service it, and we just couldn't really. It just took a bit too long to kind of get value from the product if you signed up yourself and hadn't talked to me or one of the guys. So people were coming in and trying it out and never converting from a free trial to a customer, basically.
Okay.
Because for our price point of like €50 a month, you kind of need some sort of self-service mechanism to kind of scale that. Anyway, fast forward to the end of last year, we were like, cool. Will we keep doing this, or will we like try something else? And we were like, well, the AI stuff that like we needed millions of investment for like a year or two ago is now essentially free. So
it's amazing how quickly things have changed
yeah,
in the last 2 years.
So we were like, cool, let's see if there's a market for this. So we started talking to our existing customers and doing kind of outreach to potential customers who might be interested. And we found like there seemed to be a good demand if we could build something that actually used the data we had to create content for people automatically in like an intelligent way. Like there seems to be a massive market for that, which you're seeing with like, you know, like obviously ChatGPT and like Jasper and Copy AI, which are kind of more specialized tools. Yeah. There's lots of multimedia tools coming out now as well, like based on kind of like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and that stuff. This massive market for like AI generated digital content. So like we're specifically targeting social media, and we're kind of using our own kind of proprietary data and analytics to kind of power it and running it kind of on top of some of the open source stuff that's going on. So we're spent the last kind of 6 months building that new product. We're just kind of like launching it at the moment. And yeah, got some early feedback from people, but we're kind of hopefully releasing the first version that might not be terrible in the next like week or two. Brilliant. So we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Let's jump all the way back to that conversation in the pub.
Yeah.
So like with any kind of software product, the goal is you need to solve a problem, make something faster, make it cheaper.
Yeah.
How did that very first conversation with those agency guys go?
Honestly, it probably should have been more in depth. I didn't know how to like, because I was like a back-end engineer, like focused on like software and systems and stuff. So like, I didn't really know how to conduct market research at the time. Like I'd never written a business plan, or I've never really done anything. Read a few books on like investing in stocks. Like that was my the sole business.
Wall Street bets. I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like they just kind of described it, and I thought it was like an interesting engineering problem, because like I'm used to working with like big data systems. Like I would have been a back-end engineer for Salesforce, a social media product, for like a year, and before that I worked in like a high frequency trading firm, did like trade stocks and algorithms, and I was like a back-end engineer for them as well, which is like processing like tons of data like quickly. So that's kind of always been an interesting problem for me from an engineering point of view. So that's honestly, they just like were giving out about this, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. And it was only then I started looking into it. I was like, oh, actually, we could do all this extra stuff, and there was like a market for that, you know. So it was literally just they were like, they were just kind of bitching about like their day in work or something, and how one of them was saying it was annoying that day, and then kind of just. I
mean, that's insane though. That literally like a fairly casual conversation with some friends in the pub has completely changed your path, basically.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't really, you never really know like what's going to end up kind of catching your interest or anything, do you know?
Yeah, no, I mean it's fantastic. Fair play to you. So if I suppose before we jump into COSO, if we would say that the journey you've had with ConnectMor so far.
Yeah.
So if you get the product to a point where look, it's ready for customers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of software companies get to that point, and then it's like, right, how do we get customers?
Yeah.
How is that process for you?
Yeah, I suppose we never really fully figured that out with ConnectMor, you know. And we won't know all the reasons for that. Like we've got our own assumptions around, you know, that kind of concept of like who cares about the data versus who it's useful for and like stuff like that. But we'll probably never know for sure exactly why we kind of struggle to scale it. But yeah, we tried a lot of different avenues to like scale up sales. Tried like outbound cold calling, which is,
that's what got us.
Yeah, it's originally how we found you guys.
That is not an endorsement for everybody to cold call us.
No, I think saying, "Hey, I'm building this software that's useful, and I'm also from Cork." It's nice. You probably don't have that much of an intro. Probably not worth calling.
Literally over the road.
Yeah, like 2 minutes away. But yeah, so we did that. We ran like pay-per-click campaigns, did SEO, ran pay-per-click campaigns across like LinkedIn, Google, and like Facebook's network as well.
Primarily targeting like agency owners, people within agencies.
Well, that's the thing, is we were kind of this whole time battling like with like we're not sure who the we were talking to lots of people, but we were trying to find like the niche that was kind of like pulling the sales from us. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because you don't want to be like, you want to find the people that you can kind of reproducibly contact based on whatever external kind of criteria, and then you just describe what you provide as a solution, and it resonates with them, like, oh, I have a problem, and then they're like instantly engaged. And we kind of struggled, even those like 270 odd businesses we signed up were across, like, there was probably I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40 of those were agencies.
Okay.
And then the other kind of like 200 or so were just across like every industry, because like every like industry has like a social media reliance, and like some industries it's a case of like, oh, we're put a lot of emphasis on it, we're pretty decent at it, like direct consumer brands, but like we use it so much we need to optimize it and be more efficient. And whereas the other end of the spectrum then is like maybe like independent hospitality brands, like a pub that's not part of a chain, where like they don't have a dedicated social person. It's typically like the owner doing the social media, and they're just trying to get started because they think it's very useful for them. Or like even traditional businesses like plumbers or something, you know, is like, how are they supposed to do social media? Do you know? So like trying to cater to that whole spectrum of like expertise, plus the agencies, which is their own spectrum, because like with agencies you can have like dedicated social agencies, you can have agencies that are kind of PR and communications, everything in between. And it's really hard to tell it from an external point of view what the agency's like distribution like that is. So we couldn't actually, we really struggled to find, we found some professional services directory that we like scraped and kind of ran some analytics on those companies to try and like, okay, how can we like try and bucket or segment these agencies to like systematically like reach out to this segment and this segment, this segment. And like we were really trying to do that. We were finding like, we were actually talking to people like the agency that we thought did like no social actually did a load of social, and the agency that we thought did loads of social actually had stopped doing it and is focusing now on like print media or something. You know, like, because it's constantly changing. Like agencies as well, a lot of agencies have a very short lifespan. And you know, someone's freelancing and they're like, okay, cool, we'll set up an agency. They try it for a year. They kind of, it's, you know. And
they evolve so much over time. So like we're around 13 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, go back 13 years, it's a completely different beast.
Yeah.
So they do evolve over time. So I think it is hard to, even from us, even everybody around Cork knowing what exactly people do, it can be difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
So from your perspective, obviously finding out exactly what agencies do would have been very, very challenging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially coming in, like, so I remember the first conversation, the first market research call I had with someone. So like, this is how bad I was back like a few years ago. It was like, I'd nearly like built the early stages of a solution without actually talking to any marketers. And like, I'd never worked in marketing. I was just like, from an engineering perspective. So I started doing market research. This is still when I was working full time at Salesforce. So back in like early 2020 kind of. And the first call I got on, someone was like, I was like, oh, what are you using at the moment to manage your social media? And they said Sprout Social, which is essentially like the biggest social media management tool out there. And I was like, what's Sprout Social? Do you know?
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of came from, was just like, no, nothing about the industry at all a few years ago. So the first couple of years was just like learning like how the marketing industry, how it works, like what do agencies actually do, like, and all that stuff, like what the ecosystem and stuff. So honestly, we were actually, in hindsight, like, naivety was good, because we kind of started building, and we're kind of in a position now where we're like kind of confident now that like we built something that the market actually wants, and hopefully we'll prove that out over the next few months. But if I knew like it was going to take this long, like 3-4 years to get something to that point, like I probably wouldn't have. I would have been like, I'll do something else. But just being naive about it and like not knowing how much I didn't know at the time.
In the great scheme of things, 3-4 years is absolutely nothing anyway. So
yeah, that's also a very good point. Yeah.
But so ConnectMor would say is that over time now going to phase out into COSO basically?
Yeah, we kind of see it as like ConnectMor was good, and it's still online, and we still have a few people using it.
Yeah.
But like when COSO is working, when the AI like content generation algorithms are working well, essentially it just there should be very little need for ConnectMor.
Yeah.
We still may have a stats dashboard if people are curious. And obviously for agencies, they want to send like reports to clients and stuff like that. So like we can still have that functionality.
Yeah.
But the kind of the original, what we wanted people to be using ConnectMor for was looking at the stats and then making decisions about what content to produce based on that. So like in theory, COSO should completely fill that need, which is what we wanted to be ConnectMor's primary need. What we actually ended up finding with ConnectMor was that was kind of a thing, but like people were using it more for reporting.
Yeah.
Particularly agencies.
I think we're reporting and benchmarking is what some of the team we're using it for.
Yeah, exactly. So anything that can like, help you prove your value to a client is always a good.
And that's the thing, when you come out with a product, all of a sudden it's been used for something completely different. Then you realize, we've actually got a great solution now for this other problem that we didn't realize we solved.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, no, that was interesting. But we'll see kind of how it progresses over the next kind of few months and kind of where the value is. But we probably will phase out the actual ConnectMor product, and then like the underlying infrastructure of the ConnectMor product is what's powering COSO. But in terms of the actual like the front end user interface, probably integrate a small bit of that into COSO when we kind of have the cycles or like the engineering time to get that done.
Cool.
And then kind of like decommission the old ConnectMor and kind of grandfather in existing clients.
Yeah. And in terms then of COSO, is that something you're looking to bring investment into? Are you actively looking for investment, or are you still kind of self-funded at the moment? How is that working?
So we're probably going to be raising a round of investment towards the end of the year.
Okay.
So we raised a small bit so far. So in total, kind of over the last couple of years, we got about 120 grand of investment.
Cool.
Which is like super, super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Enterprise Ireland is like our biggest backer in that. So they've given us like 100 grand.
Unreal.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
And I noticed as well, I think on LinkedIn I see you're quite active kind of in the startup scene as well. And I'm guessing there's a rake of like private investment people in that space, I'm presuming as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like Ireland's kind of got a bit of it's getting better, but in terms of like, there's this whole concept of like, so like startup investment kind of works in stages of like pre-seed, like so that angel, friends and family is kind of like the very early stage, which is kind of roughly the same as what people call like a pre-seed round, which is essentially we kind of have like a bare bones MVP, or we have a concept that like makes sense.
Just in terms of jargon, MVP is minimal viable.
Minimal viable
product. Just getting a product that works. To
yeah,
some
exactly.
extent.
Like just proves like the core,
concept.
Very roughly the core value of the product that you're trying to build like large scale. You know, before it's like properly like a product.
Yeah.
Just to be like, okay, people are using this and getting the value that like we need them to get out of it to build a business around. Let's build like a more scalable product at that point. So that's kind of the point we're at now with COSO. So we have some people kind of using it and testing it, but still a lot of work to go to kind of make it into a fully fleshed out product.
Yeah.
And then like seed investment is kind of the next step after that. Traditionally is like a lot, like historically was kind of the first round of investment nearly was the seed investment, but now there's like the pre-seed to kind of get you there because it's just stuff's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like, so like pre-seed you might get like 100 or 200 grand to kind of build like a bare bones kind of beta version of the product. And then typically like for SaaS, so like software as a service, subscription based products, you're kind of getting to like a few €1,000 a month revenue, or maybe a bit more than that, kind of maybe like up to like 20,000 a month, something along those lines, to get to like a seed investment, which is your first kind of like, you know, kind of could be, it varies a lot, but like 1 to kind of 6 million sort of range.
Okay.
Depending where you are in the world as well, like US companies get more investment typically. There's exceptions to that, but like usually valuations and the amount of investment you get is kind of higher in the US.
Yeah.
But anyway, pre-seed investment, kind of investing when you have like kind of a concept or just like some super bare bones, it's actually a bit of a black hole in Ireland.
Okay.
So like it's getting better. And like Enterprise Ireland fills the gap by giving people early stage money, and there's like the NDRC as well, which they run like an accelerator, you give you like 100 grand. And there's some stuff like that, kind of like public funded things that are kind of like,
it's unusual
it.
Given the amount of tech startups in Ireland, the amount of all the tech companies from the States here, that we don't have a better structure around that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think a lot of the money in Ireland from, if you want to talk like angel investors, is a lot of the money comes from people who run traditional businesses. So someone who maybe runs like a chain of like Centras and has money that they've built up over their lifetime, and they're looking to like invest in like early stage companies.
Okay.
And then it's like, cool. So like that profile of person, and then you're going to them like, listen, I have an idea. Can I have 100 grand? Is like very foreign. So we haven't had the maturity in our startup ecosystem yet to have like, so that pre-seed kind of money is starting to happen now, based on, you know, like look like Intercom, and some other companies that have like achieved like unicorn status, which is just getting to $1 billion valuation. But like people have exited from those companies, and like a lot of companies, and now we're seeing those people start to angel invest in early stage tech startups because they understand more about the business model. So like, you know, early stage tech investing, you're investing in like, you're not investing in like 10 companies plus, like there's no point doing it. So like it's far better bet to give 10 companies 10 grand than one company 100 grand.
Yeah.
But like, you'd be like, oh, well, should I just give 100 grand to the company that I'm most sure will succeed? But like, statistically, you're probably wrong. Like most VC investments essentially go to zero, like venture capital investments. And that's like a team of like people who are dedicated just to investing the venture capital money.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's very different. You know, if you take like Buffett, where he's like, okay, just find one good company and hold them for the rest of your life. It's a very different mentality around this. All right.
Yeah. But no, it's getting better for like super early stage investing. And then when you get to like seed stage, or like, so then after seed, there's like series A, B, C. You can go down the whole alphabet basically until you like IPO.
Yeah. So that's going on the stock market basically. Initial public offering.
Yeah. So, but like some companies would be down at like a series like investment round. It's like, what equity do the founders still have in the company at that point? The 2%. Get halfway through the alphabet. Like. But from like that stage on, when you actually kind of have like a business essentially kind of set up where you have kind of, you know, monthly recurring revenue. Like I specifically am talking about like SaaS businesses here because that's what I have experience in. They're like, in terms of like long-term like deep tech plays or like hardware businesses, it's kind of slightly, everything's a bit different. And just
SaaS is software as a service, so like anything you're paying your monthly fee for the software basically.
Yeah, so your Hootsuite,
Adobe Suite,
most like business softwares at this point have gone to subscriptions.
The SaaS platform.
But yeah, so with that, so the kind of like from the seed to Series A and beyond that, like Ireland's actually pretty decent. Cool. The venture funds that are based in Ireland, kind of most of them kind of come in. There is some pre-seed you can get, but like most of the over the last decade, say most of the kind of a lot of the Irish institutional money would have come in from like seed stage plus. So it's just kind of like getting to that point.
So in terms of where coso's at now, so obviously you're at the stage where it's very, some people test it. Next step we get to that minimal viable product, and get it out to the market. Yeah. How do you see? What have you learned from what you did with ConnectMor that you will be doing, and the things that you won't be doing? With coso.
I think with ConnectMor, we were a bit kind of arrogant. Where we were both like, myself and my co-founder are both like engineers basically. And we were like, cool, we'll build the cool engineering solution and then we'll kind of like figure out the rest. So, and there was a bit of like arrogance kind of around that, you know, and like the fact that like there's lots of like really useful tools out there already. And we're like, we'll build something like better than the tool. And we just kind of like essentially decided we do that, you know, which is good and bad, you know. But bad in the sense that like you then put pressure on yourself to kind of do that, and it leads to, when you're doing market research, maybe you're doing like it's like more confirmation bias than like actual research. It's like you're asking people kind of leading questions like, oh, if we had like if you had something that could tell you what was performing best for all your competitors on social media, and you could kind of produce content based on the amalgamation of all that, like, would you use that? And like every social media marketer in the world and business owner is going to be like, yes. So like we're having these conversations and we're like, great, it's another one.
Everybody wants
another potential. Yeah, exactly. So like, and we were doing that. That was like part of that as well, was just like ignorance in terms of how to conduct market research and kind of what sort of questions to ask, what sort of questions to avoid, and this sort of stuff, which I could talk a bit more about. But that's probably the biggest thing. So like when we went back like 6 months ago, we were like, okay, cool. Like, are we going to even continue the business here, or will we just like do something else? Yeah. We like went back and we were like talking to people and we were like, cool. Like, what are your like top 3 problems? It's like blank slate. Like, what are your top 3 problems? And we were trying to figure out.
When you say you went to people, by the way, was this people in agencies? Was this business, or was it the same mix of people would say from ConnectMor?
It was kind of a good spread of like agencies and like startup founders. Sure, like we can kind of have good access to them just based off our network, and then also kind of marketers working like in-house for companies as well. So we got a good spread, and then we just talking to people like, what are your top 3 problems?
Okay.
And we were trying to figure out like who cared about social media. And then we're like, cool, okay, there's something here. And then kind of delving into like what problems they actually care about in relation to social media. And then we came up with like, I think there was like 17 different like, just like, but it was very much blank slate. We were trying to like influence. So we came up with like 17 different like problem statements.
Okay.
And then we put them into like this like stacked rank thing. I basically sent them off to a few hundred people on LinkedIn. Like, hey, would you mind like ranking these problems? But it's like you get like A or B. There's a cool like Irish startup called OpinionX that like helps with product research and stuff. And then they have like an algorithm basically that ranks based on everyone you send them to gets like say 10 of the problems, and basically going like this or that for like 5 times
until you find out what they mean.
It has like an algorithm that like ranks stuff. Okay. So we found like we were optimizing kind of for problems that weren't top of mind for people before. So we were optimizing for because this is just all based on assumptions, right? We didn't talk to enough people in the right way for the old ConnectMor product. So like we were optimizing for like increasing the engagement of your content and tracking competitors. I think I have to actually go back and look at the data to make sure exactly what's going on. I said this in a few months. And the biggest problem that we found was people wanted to post a higher volume of content, and they wanted to react to trends. Okay. So improving your engagement on social media and tracking your competitors are kind of the same thing as posting more volume of content and reacting to trends. But we found that's not how people were thinking about it, you know?
So would you say it was more the value in how you were positioning the product as opposed to what the product did is what came out of that more?
Kind of how positioned, but also when you're developing the product, whatever you're thinking of like the top of mind problems, that ends up influencing a lot of development decisions.
Okay.
So like even like in terms of like the UI, if we'd done that research with ConnectMor, we would have built the UI focusing more on like social media trends that are relevant for your business, which is just looking at competitors. But we're like, oh, competitors, you know, like track your competitors and stuff. But like that messaging doesn't resonate as much with people as like trends that are relevant for your business.
Well, I suppose competitors are a part of the trends.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like as in, I'm making assumptions on the product here now, but you might be able to find other trends that are applicable to the business that competitors haven't jumped on yet and things like that as well. So it's definitely a part, I suppose, a part of it, but I probably wouldn't say they're exactly the same as such. But that's the thing, like you said, when you're asking these questions, you know, if you want a particular answer, you can ask that question in a way where you will get that answer, which is very dangerous.
Yeah. And when you're not, you're not even you're just ignorant to the fact you don't know how to do stuff. Like there's this really good book called The Mom Test, which is like every startup founder's Bible now. But
okay.
Basically, it's how to ask questions. Like the concept is if you go and you tell your mom like anything, and she'd be like, fantastic, well done. So it's like, well, how can you ask if you want to build a startup and you tell your mom about it? Like she's obviously going to be like, oh yeah, great, like fair play, sounds good. So like, how could you ask the questions to figure out if you should build a startup to your mom without her just being like, yeah, great,
you're brilliant, yeah.
Which is kind of the methodology that we did in our market research for like COSO, which is more like asking kind of white space questions where you're just like, oh, what are your top problems? Okay, cool. Like, how do you manage social media at the moment? What tools do you use? Like building it and then kind of inferring if they have the problem or not.
Yeah.
So like the kind of using that sort of, but like you don't like go back a few years ago, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah. So one of the biggest learnings between the two, I suppose, is the market research side in terms of not just asking questions, but actually how you're asking them.
Definitely.
To get the truthful information back as opposed to the information you want to hear, I suppose. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, probably like putting like ego aside and then learning how to actually do market research. Probably two of the biggest learnings. And then also the importance of kind of actually being focused on the product experience more.
Okay.
Which is kind of, we'll build a product that like does something cool and then people will like look at it. So like I wasn't necessarily involved in designing the UI for ConnectMor. And then what ended up happening was we're like, oh, cool. So we onboarded loads of businesses, but they're not getting value from the product quick enough. And like we didn't know how to think about that and like bake it in. So like we're super focused now on like time to value. So like the whole thing with Coso is within 90 seconds of signing up, you've produced a bit of content that you can post on social media.
So you're getting the benefit like straight away.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas with ConnectMor, when we actually realized like that's a concept that we should be optimizing for, we'd already built ConnectMor basically. And then we were like, cool, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes because you have to add competitors, we sync the data and blah, blah, blah. So we were actually, that's where we were losing most people.
Okay.
So we're like, cool, as soon as you log into Coso for the first time, like within your first session, you're able to produce content that will actually be valuable for you. And we designed the whole product around that, just like activating you when you sign in first, like so far. And like stuff like that. So like now, like I'm in Figma, like designing functional UIs, and then we've got like a UX person based in over in Poland, and I feed those to her. She makes them like production-y and kind of actually look nice, and then I give them to a developer who implements the design. Whereas before, I was describing something we wanted to work and just saying to the developer, like, "Can you build this?
Make this happen."
You know, and we didn't put enough emphasis on that, and kind of I think we underestimated how important that is, because like that was the first actual like built like some internal tooling before, but the first like product that kind of had to convert customers that I built or that we built was ConnectMor, you know. So obviously there's going to be lots of learnings there just on product kind of management and that sort of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
For anybody out there at the moment who's starting their own software business, so obviously that was one of the other major learnings. Anything else like really jump out at you, like if I could go back, this is something I would definitely do differently?
I think that's pretty good list so far. But
even in terms of even mindset, so obviously you mentioned ego as well.
Yeah.
You know, even because I find like mindset is like 80% of it.
Yeah.
So even in terms of like how your mindset has changed over the years, anything that you know, if somebody's listening and they're like, I'm in the middle of this journey, I'm starting a software business, if there's something you could tell them you think that would be of massive benefit to them along that journey, what obviously you've mentioned a lot already, but is there something else that you think would really help them?
Don't quit your job too early. I think is something that people don't hear enough if they look up startup stuff, because a lot of stuff is very American focused.
Yeah.
A lot of literature and like blogs and like YouTube and everything. Where, not to say like that isn't true in America also, but it could be a while before you have something that can get investment, or it can sustain you financially if you're building software. Like it's a long process.
Yeah.
So I know a load of founders that have had like over the past few years that have had really good ideas, or like built the early stages of really good products. They hadn't quite found like the market for it to start kind of like actually generating like substantial revenue yet. They were struggling to get investment, because like people as well. This is the other thing: people who like have like previously exited from a startup, so like second time plus founders, or people who are like early hires in successful startups, or people who are like a VP at some tech company, or like a PhD in like an area related to the startup. Like any of these people have a lot easier time basically going in somewhere with like an idea and like getting investment. And disproportionately, when you look at stuff online, you hear about success stories, which are these people. But what you don't hear about is like all the founders. Like I did New Frontiers, which is an early stage startup program run by Enterprise Ireland, actually, primarily. I did that back in like towards the end of 2020, for like 6 months. And like, I think there's like there's 13 or 14 startups that are on that. And I think there's 4 of us that I think that are still doing our startups, which is actually quite a high rate. Yeah. But I think 2 of the startups, arguably 3 if you include ours, have like changed what they're doing.
Yeah.
In the meantime. But like everyone at that point had quit their job to do a startup. For the program. Wow. It's like a kind of a full-time program.
Okay.
And beyond that, like I know just anecdotally, like a load of other people that have like essentially ran out of cash to sustain themselves financially before they kind of like got to the proof points they needed to like raise investment. And
like that's actually the vast majority. Like
it's the vast majority. Yeah. So like there's people who like have great ideas that I think could work and they make sense and everything. But like they quit their job a bit too early to focus on it, and then didn't have enough like personal runway, like keep themselves eating and paying rent.
Yeah.
And then it's like, cool, they need to go back and get a job to cover their own expenses now. And they're going from being full-time in their startup back to part-time in their startup. And they just like lose all the momentum. And it's like obviously very demotivating as well. And which is actually a massive thing. It's just keeping your, maybe I guess another learning, but like prioritizing like your own kind of mental health. And like if I can make myself like more optimized, I guess is the word, like in terms of like prioritizing my own mental health, taking a break when I need to take a break, all that stuff, and kind of avoiding things that I know are going to be like make you not feel great about yourself or the business, because that really drains you and makes you less effective as like an operator.
100%, man. And I always, and you put it on a t-shirt, there's a saying, comparison is the theft of joy.
Yeah, 100%.
It is, and you kind of feed yourself this by what you watch on social media, because whatever you watch, it's going to show you more of it. But one of the things I always say to people is just, it doesn't matter a fuck what anybody else is doing. Focus on your own thing. If you're successful, awesome. If you're not, you've learned a shit ton. But if you're benchmarking yourself with other people in terms of where you're at in your life, that's the worst possible thing you can do.
100%.
And at the end of the day, there's only one goal: be fucking happy. So if you're happy in what you're doing in building a startup, then you're winning. But yeah, everybody looks at like the 0.0000001% of those success stories, and you start looking at that and looking at yourself towards that. It's like it's the worst thing you can do. Like, and it like if you get to a place where you're able to build a business that just sustains, I mean that in itself is amazing. But if you can get all this funding and you see other people getting this funding, that's bound to obviously play on you for sure. But you have to remember that it is like the tiny percentage of people that do get to that place. And if, as you say, if you're looking online at all these people and you see all this success, you feel like, why is this not coming? Why is this not happening? But it's social media can be a bit of a beast that way, like.
100%.
And did you find, obviously you found that quite difficult, and did a lot of that come from the circles you were in, or did it come from kind of what you were consuming online?
In terms of
that kind of, you were saying with regards like mental health, we'll say, you obviously taking care of yourself and comparing with other people. Where did kind of most of that noise come from, I suppose?
A mixture. Like you hear like the only thing you ever hear press about is like when a startup's raised, you know, they raised a pre-seed round of 500k or raised like a few million or something. Like that's the only press you ever hear. You don't hear about the startup that like I know of 2 startups that have were kind of like similar-ish stages for ourselves that have like shut down in the last like month or 2. And like you're not going to hear about that. You're not going to hear about that. So like that, but then also just even the circles as well, I guess, to a certain extent, because like that's when if you go for a pint with like a startup founder, it's like, oh, did you hear about like such and such? And, you know, they got like some massive deal or they got some massive investment. And then also a lot of the content online is also like further afield in Ireland is like focused again on like success stories and winning stuff, so you're actually like constantly bombarded with it. It's the same way, like it's not dissimilar to like if you wanted to become like a musician or a comedian or something, and you're not seeing the like the 999 musicians that are struggling. You're just seeing the one that's doing amazing.
That was me. I played drums in the band for years.
There you go.
We didn't make it. Clearly.
So you only it's mad, like and back to like social media in general, even like with a personal social media, like you're always seeing, you know, like the best version of people, and you don't see the, you know. I do find you can kind of curate that yourself if you're actively trying to put yourself in a better kind of mindset on social. I think you can kind of actively curate that yourself by blocking all that shit. 100%. You have to be like aware of it, and like aware that you're looking at something that's like the 1%, not the 99%.
There you go. And I think that's the key in it, and most people probably don't think like that. And that is definitely something there needs to be, I know, more education on, more pushing of, because it is you know, it really is just people showing that 0.001% of their success, their happiness, whatever it is. But yeah, look, that's a really interesting side to it. Actually, there's probably a podcast there with like founders who failed, because they're going to have learned so much during that. That there's definitely something there. So in terms of the future for COSO, in the ideal world, how will that play out? Are you hoping kind of in the next kind of say 6 months to 5 years? What is the plan you would hope for?
So the way like marketing is going, there's essentially over the next few years, like at least the way I see it, you can disagree. I'm not necessarily correct, but based on kind of what's happened over the last couple of years, I think it's moving in a direction where like the marketers that are still successful in the next few years are going to be like heavily powered by AI. Whether it's for like text creation or like image creation or even like image curation, like selecting images that work best, or even like just automatically adding like brand logos and stuff. It's such a time saver. It saves you, if you can save 20 minutes on Photoshop 5 times a day, every day, like you're just going to be able to do way more than a marketer who's not leveraging that,
100%. I think that's where it's still from the creative side. I still think that's for the vast majority on the creative side. That's still going to come back to human beings. Where we're seeing it at the moment, and our designer Matt, we've actually given like every Friday to just play with different AI tools. Just go out there, discover things. So he's like knee deep in Midjourney and Jasper and everything at the moment. And that's where we see the value is that it's going to save people time, so that those things that AI can't do in terms of the human mind, the creative, they're going to have a lot more time hopefully to spend on that, because those more repetitive tasks are those things that where that can be done by AI, it's going to just save them a lot of time, so that they can focus on the more unique things, I suppose. Exactly. So like we're like that's the way we see the industry going, and essentially what we want to do is have a product that can just market an arbitrary thing using AI across. Like social media is a great test bed for like kind of what I was saying earlier about the like all the content, what's good and bad content inherently and this sort of stuff. So it's nice as like the start, but as stuff gets more sophisticated, like Coca-Cola had that like AI generated commercial they ran like last month, I think. I don't think I've seen that actually.
So they used like one of the AI to like I think they didn't. I don't know if they revealed what they actually used for it, or if they just built something in house. Like I think there's something came out last week. They spent like $30 billion a year on marketing or something. It's like it's not really accessible for a lot of people. But like they have an entire team of machine learning engineers just working on AI ads. Like they probably do, to be fair. But so that's ran on TV, and it was I think it was a fully AI generated like 30-second ad or something. And you wouldn't know. It looks like it's animated by like an animator. So all this stuff is coming, and we kind of want to be at the center of that from a software solution.
Cool.
So it's like super nascent now, the industry, in terms of this like AI generated marketing content. But what's going to happen probably over the next few years is there's going to be a few kind of dominant, like your spread socials and your Hootsuite and your Later, this whatever, like 5 or 6 social media schedulers, like a couple that are most of the market share, and then a couple that are kind of maybe like make up the other 20% between them of the market shares, something like that. So like that's the same way that like this like social media or marketing generated content industry is going to go over the next kind of like decade. And then it's a case of like if we're in a position where we can build like a defensible product from a tech point of view, we either get acquired by like a Sprout Social or Hootsuite to be like their AI content generation piece, or we start acquiring people, which would be fun. So that's the way we kind of see it. And then hopefully, in kind of 10 years when this kind of market matures, COSO or whatever it's involved then in terms of the stack is like one of the players that emerges would be nice. And like ultimately, kind of selfishly, I kind of want something that I can run, so that when I set up any future business, I just have an AI that like we just market this product, and the AI just does it. So I can just set up like an arbitrary business, or AI will just market it for me. But yeah, so we'll see if we get to that point. But
fantastic. Well, listen, man, it's been lovely having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks
so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thanks a million for having me on. Appreciate it. And, pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Business and Marketing Scoop. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to click that subscribe button in Spotify, in Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Each week, we have great people on talking about business, talking about marketing, giving amazing value and amazing insights. So please make sure you are subscribed.